Let's get into our next topic. Meta.
All right,
Lion
so
Soma.
I am I'm actually really glad that this is posted and that you brought this to all of our attention. Because obviously I don't have Facebook, so I don't do the Facebook.
Me either.
I just don't like Facebook in any shape or form. I tried it once a while back, and I was like, I don't even talk to people like this. I just have their numbers and I text them and call them and shit. So really no point for Facebook for me. But you did bring up is that there is obviously, if you're aware of being obviously podcast one, you probably came for L5R stuff. There is obviously a very large group on Facebook for L5R and L5R things. And recently, one of the developers for fourth edition through first edition, very long time one. I don't even know if we know the name of this person.
I do. He's been posting on his personal page, actually. It's
okay.
Rob Hobart.
Rob Hobart. Okay. Oh, one of the Hobarts.
Who used to, I think he was the head of, or used to be the head of Heroes of Rokugan, which was kind of the D&D Adventurers League of L5R.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it was. Rob Hobart has his fingers in a lot of things in it and whatnot. And depending on your own personal experience with the Hobarts, give or take. But he did release out a very interesting thing, which is a lot of looks into some of the development concepts into L5R. It's a very long document, about 9 pages of
it. I believe this was multiple posts collected by Obsidian for us.
Yeah,
yes,
four posts worth over the past week or so.
Well, I mean, like looking at what I've got here, it's 13 pages long based on just his information. I've actually got it open. I put some information on there myself to just remind myself as we're going over this, but because it's a lot to cover. But about 5 pages of is actual like changes of mechanics or lists of just something that was changed, and then the rest of it, about 7 to 8 pages, is actual text from his posts talking about things. And I kind of like going over the whole thing. First off, it's really, really interesting to always listen to what a developer or a designer and their thoughts about something. And when they can actually be free-formed on those thoughts, they no longer have to kind of like not badmouth the product that they're supporting, but to actually legitimately come forth with the thoughts or theories or the complaints that they had that eventually didn't either get in or not. This is a nice breath of fresh air from a designer to see things that they didn't agree with, but still things that they went along with at the end of the day, and maybe why or why not that they did or did not want to go along with something that either got in or didn't. But going over the whole document, he essentially talks about kind of the change of what L5R was from the first edition to the fourth edition, the kind of what happened to like the schools and the techniques for them, what happened kind of with the clans and their focuses, and
I think his real thesis statement is an attempt at reconciliating fluff and mechanics, essentially.
Yeah. So
particularly in quote-unquote class design.
Yep. He's been currently working on a book series called The Empire of the Sun and the Moon.
It's really good, actually. I've read both books.
Yeah, the 2 books are out. I have not read them, but...
it's a more realistic, probably, version of...
I'm guessing so.
Rokugan, kind of. Not really that much magic, but... Anyways, that's a different talk for a different time. Well, I can talk about those books on a episode.
But you know that it is something that is mentioned in here is that it is always kind of has a focus for the more realism. It's a very kind of quasi-ish low fantasy setting, so to speak. Magic really shouldn't be a big thing. But the biggest thing that he talks about in all of this is that really seems to be the general thing that kind of is the blank that kind of covers everything in here is the idea of classes not being an L5R. And that's a very large focus for the majority of his writing here. Because in L5R, one of the biggest changes from first edition to second to third and fourth was that essentially schools and their designs kind of became more and more focused in areas, to the point where originally in first edition, which was pretty broken from what I understand, and rightfully looking at it from the mechanics.
It ain't third, but
yeah. But you can see where there is a very much an openness, and the idea is that, you know, if you could be a magistrate or you could be a really skilled duelist that's not from the Kiki to the Miyamoto and whatnot, and it's that generally your school or your family or your clan didn't fully define the road you were going to be on, you could very much be a very skilled duelist and a magistrate. You could be a Shugenja who was also really good with a sword, so on and so forth. But it's kind of one of his biggest issues is that as kind of time went on, more techniques came out. They started becoming more focused. Eventually came with this idea is that if you're a bushi, you're really good at fighting. If you're a courtier, you're an awesome talker. If you're kind of a scout,
sling spells.
You sling spell, and if you're kind of like a scout / shinobi, then you're really good at sneaky deaky stuff. And that really gave the idea of these iconic classes. And something I like to be fair with him, I really do agree that these aren't really appropriate things for this game. They really aren't. I only came in on the 4th edition. The only time I ever heard about it before then, I think I've talked about this in the podcast before, is like looking at Oriental Adventures from 3.5 because I started with Dungeons and Dragons. So the only time I saw this kind of game was like from that. But coming out on 4th edition, this is something I've actually had one of the biggest issues I personally have is I never felt the courtier schools had any reason to be in there. A lot of times they were mechanically, they were either mechanically or numerically far too potent.
They almost just need to be relegated to their own game.
Yeah, they really were their own beast. Like you literally had skills. They're almost all their rank 5 techniques, which is something that Rob here states is that he really didn't feel like every clan or school, I should say, should have 5 techniques.
They didn't used to in 1st edition.
They didn't have that in 1st edition, and
like it doesn't make sense for like, for instance, even like the Bat Clan talking about in recent lore or at the end of AEG era of lore, they'd only existed for like a few decades. So have they really had enough time to like develop a secret technique for their school? I mean, like some of the newer clans, does it make sense that they have 5 techniques and the Crab Bushi school only has 5? Like
a lot of that stuff was probably done more for balancing.
Exactly, which is what he says. He said it's all more about balancing everything out and making people not feel cheated for going a certain route or like screwed over, I guess.
Which, I mean, you're going to have different takes on that. Generally, I am in agreement, though, that I do like a bit of balance in my game if it means tearing it away from the world. I don't want somebody to feel like just because they're choosing a route that they like, they're going to suck more for it.
Yeah,
well, he has an answer for it.
Well, so there's a designer, Mark Rosewider, who a designer of Magic the Gathering, who's been at it for over 20 years now, and one of the things he often will say when getting questions about like maybe why a color doesn't do this, like it's easy to see a reason in the lore or fluff or whatever you want to call it, why it should be able to, and he says that sometimes mechanics needs to trump flavor.
Yeah.
And this guy, I think, goes a bit too far in the other direction at times when reading this, but or just from his desires, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like when he's like talking about like the like being upset that the Ronin have a school.
Yeah.
Is like, well, I mean,
flavor
sometimes.
Yeah.
You just kind of like. I mean, they would have obviously Ronin are going to pick up some skills some tricks along, at least the ones that live long enough, right?
Well, and I mean too, right? Like even in the fluff, you have Hori's wolves, right? So like, they could have had some formal quote unquote school.
In 1st edition, they had a Tokodate, which was the Ronin Brotherhoods, like the Forest Killers, the Frog guys.
There are plenty of schools out there that range from nearly ranks 1 to 5 for Ronin schools.
Yeah, Ronin schools weren't even a thing until 3rd edition, I believe.
Yeah,
but
I mean, the idea being is that they have more EXP at the start because that's the makeup for the lack of school tax. But I mean, unfortunately, I would say that's not really going to make up.
That's old 90s. No, it's not. That's old 90s era RPG design, basically.
Yeah. It's very old school RPG.
It was rough being a Ronin in 1st edition. I played with someone who was playing one.
Yeah, I mean, like because like when you go into what I was saying about like courtier schools and like my dislike for them personally, that kind of stuff should be pulled away. But he also talks about, as you said, going in like that opposite direction, almost too much, where he kind of starts saying like everybody should kind of be able to do a dabbling in everything, and that's fine. But then you end up kind of like getting you kind of come into two players a problem when you start moving that opposite direction, where it's that once you start moving outside a realm of a focus and you allow people to be just as competent while doing other things as somebody who focuses an area.
Yeah, he talks about Shugenja basically being as good as like the
as
Bushi or whatever, and it's like then
once
why would I ever be
a
Bushi?
Exactly. That's exactly
well, you gotta spend it. You gotta divvy up your XP between spells and stuff. It's basically, do you want? It's kind of like being a Gish, I guess. It's like you kind of have to balance like your martial stuff with like your spell casting.
Yeah.
Right, but he specifically does state in his document, and I'm sure because it's a document, he would have more to explain on. But he does specifically state that they could be just as good as a Bushi, which becomes the issue.
And still have spells.
Why be a Bushi?
Some of them were basically.
Right. Yeah, right. They were.
First edition.
Yeah, again, he was talking
and the old card game, a lot of the Shugenja had swords and dueled people. So.
Yeah, and he's like, it was this way in first edition, and he kind of, it just seems like he liked that aspect, and I don't think it's necessarily the best choice for at least most people.
And if we jump back to the other side of this extreme, when we have specific classes that do specific things, which was really what they are, the schools are classes. You are forcing somebody down a road.
Which it kind of makes sense.
It does. It does make sense from understanding like what a school might teach and focus on. But then you get the issue of that there's almost no reason to move outside that realm of focus, because if you do, you're really only hindering where you are good.
Yeah,
except for maybe like boons, or if you're to act like, say, as potentially like just a quasi pinch hitter backup, just in case the main guy is down and you need like if your courtier suddenly got into trouble and you've got no courtier, one dude is like, don't worry, I took a couple points in etiquette and courtier. We should be able to glide by until we can get our actual courtier back online.
Right. But again, this was like, because he mentions he was like kind of putting some like, or at least thinking of things in context of before the new edition, new game came out, and then when he saw the new game, he kind of saw how they were doing their things, and
and he does enjoy some of it. He doesn't like how it's fully like done, but he does enjoy specific points of it. One of the things I believe he makes note of, if I remember correctly, looking through the document, he does make note that he really wishes that they had come up with a stress mechanic. I'm not sure how much I'd agree with that.
Yeah, I don't agree there, but I don't know. Maybe he'll post ideas about that later. What he would do with it.
Yeah, I would like to see what he has to say on that, just because I think it's a very interesting part. But as he's talking about like something as about clan specifics, and that's where he gets into talking about like how FFG does the schools, and where they kind of start off one way, and then kind of depending on like the category that they are defined as, Bushi for your fighters and Shugenjas for your casters, and stuff like that, kind of helps define like what they might pull from, whether that might be kata, kiho, rituals, or quick magic.
But like each level is kind of a lot more freeform.
Yes, it's very freeform. But his complaint then becomes that there's not a lot of clan focus. There's no clan distinction. Like you could end up having a Bayushi, a Yoritomo, a Hida, a Utaku and Moto, and a Mirumoto all be able to pull from a lot of the same kata and whatnot. So at the end of the day, the only thing really differentiating them is both the fact that they literally state that they're a Mirumoto and their first school technique, which is the only thing that's unique about them, and possibly the end technique.
I think that's the FFG version. I think his version is
his would be
where you can search out for techniques basically, and you can only learn from your clan like those techniques basically.
Well, his would be a lot more similar in that like there are common techniques, but you will also,
those are like the kata and the Ronin school stuff.
There will be more clan specific stuff like to let you stand out from the others.
Like you could get like the mountain does not fall eventually.
Well, I think it's more that your lower Bushi will be a lot more similar, and your higher tier Bushi will be a lot more distinguishable from different.
Because they could have like core tier techniques or stuff like that.
And that's like if you look at the source material, right? Like Ashigaru is Ashigaru in Japan, actual samurai structure. And it's not until you start getting to those people who eventually went on to develop their own, swordsmanship schools that you even really see a difference. Like a samurai on the battlefield is a samurai on the battlefield. And so, like, looking at it from that point of view, I can see the positive aspect of just general any other samurai is kind of going to start being the same.
Yeah.
Really are making a name for yourself.
Yeah, and I think his, like, I don't know if he outright says it or not, because I can't remember, because I haven't completely read through it in at least a week, but, like, basically, like, Shugenja, who wanted to be more proficient in weapons and stuff like that, could get kata, essentially. They wouldn't get actual, like, bushi techniques, per se, but they could learn, sword kata and stuff.
Yeah, I think there would be, again, those common level stuff would be more accessible.
Yeah.
I don't think everything is always... I don't think everything in the document is always well defined, though, so there is a lot of us kind of just going off of a lot of things.
Yeah.
I will say this, though. At the end of the road, you're going to end up getting possibly two results. You either get weaker individuality of classes for the sake of balance, or you take the road of absolute separation, but there's generally no balance, which is what 4th edition really was.
Yeah.
Absolute separation.
I mean, there was. I mean, I think they intended for there to be some balance, at least between the class, like
the categories.
Yeah, the categories, but that didn't really work out either.
No, I was gonna say that didn't really work
Shugenja are just way too powerful.
Between
Bushi or next,
all
and then
the different Shugenja are kind of balanced against each other, at least, and like the different Bushi are kind of balanced against each other.
Yeah, the Shugenja are balanced against each other just because they all literally pick from the same thing.
Yeah.
Like the technique doesn't really matter that much.
But the Bushi are very less so because they're very focused around what their school.
Right.
Exactly.
We've had the conversation before.
We've ranked them.
We've ranked them.
Yeah, we've absolutely gone through and ranked them. There's very clear differences.
Moto's on par with Hida. We all know that.
Just like as a personal thought, though, from this, I think personally, if they were to do a redesign of 4th, if we're going to talk about 4th, I don't think there should be a full elimination. I don't agree with the ideas that there should be like this almost elimination of specialization. But I do think
I think categories are
nice to have. They are good. I just don't think they should be as drastically high in power.
Right. Like courtiers and Shugenja should be able to defend themselves.
Yes.
Yeah,
but I also don't
never want to play a courtier in a main game.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
I don't think that they need to be able to in 1st edition they didn't need champions and stuff unless you were a Phoenix. Like I don't think that should they all should be like that, right? Like
I think they still had to. It's basically if you carried a katana, you were signifying that you knew how to wield it, and then thus you were responsible for yourself in a duel. If you only carried your wakizashi, then that meant that you were signifying you didn't, and you could elect a champion. Or if you were just too important, you could have a champion.
Well, I'm just saying in the document, he says, I think that Yojimbos weren't really a thing except for the Phoenix, and that other Shugenja and stuff were able to defend themselves.
I think he's talking about I think he's just talking about the realm of Shugenja. Yeah, no, they used to duel each other. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I think courtier should not be doing nothing in combat, basically, right?
Yeah,
yeah.
And I'll say this right now: if you look at the actual classes, the first ranks for most of the courtiers for 4th edition, the first ranks are actually not that bad. They give a lot of flavor to how they approach as a courtier, or what they might do. It allows them to kind of get that bonus, get that advantage, so to speak, on social roles, without being insane. It's generally everything that comes after.
Yeah. Also, at first level, the distance and martial ability is a lot smaller too.
Exactly.
So a courtier is rank 1 courtier and bushi are going to be a lot more comparable before you start. By the time rank 3 and 4,
once rank 3 shows up, that's where it really gets nasty.
But I think my favorite thing about the document though is just the because the game has always talked about secret techniques, secret spells, stuff like that. And it never gives them to you. It never gives them to you, and it's always right there. You read it and you go, "Why don't you tell me what the secret ones are?"
How?
And a lot of the mechanics don't reflect that they're very insular. I don't want to let this.
Reflect this.
Yeah, I don't want to let this. If I'm a Crane, I don't want to let this line know how to outduel me, because then their one duelist guy is going to outduel all my duelists on the battlefield.
But it doesn't even make any sense from a statistic point. How is it that these techniques have been here for so many years and nobody took a look and was like, I could replicate that? How is that fucking possible? It just doesn't make any sense from a realistic world standpoint. Techniques are secret, quote unquote, until they're not. And if you keep showing off the same damn thing for 1,000 fucking years, somebody should catch on. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I really do like the idea of the way like he presented, like, leveling up with the, more character options. Or
XP,
something
basically,
I
to get your
always love.
techniques.
XP kind of, yeah, the character options is always good.
I just being able to play the same quote unquote class or whatever, like, which, like, in the way he describes it, you're it's kind of dividing up the class, like what carries the class or whatever, against like the your clan or your clan or family or whatever.
Yeah, because like 90% of Kakita Bushi are going to be really good at Iajutsu.
Yeah,
like most crab are going to like they're going to like you kind of see like a general through line with a majority of like the characters.
And again,
of that school.
I think that should apply to like low level stuff. But there should also like there are stories of duelists from other clans being better than the Crane.
Yeah.
But that sort of thing would, like, they would have their own techniques, or it would be at a much rarer rate, because like basically just a higher level character, because they're so much rarer in the story and stuff.
I think like a very good idea would have been is that generally put, when you're picking up a clan in a school, that school has a specialization which lets you get access to certain things earlier on than say somebody else, or has their own spin on them. That means that generally your lower levels are going to, on a generic level, are going to generally have a lot of really crossover with one another. But as you just progress a little bit more forward, that's where they kind of start to see the definition of them starting out, but they're still comparable. It's not until you say finally at the later levels that I think, and I agree with, is that really where they should be truly defining themselves.
Mm-hmm. I also, just as not necessarily something that's in the document, but having things that are kind of really only that like rules that are kind of segregated, or like character options that are really only meant for like players. Sort of like advanced abilities that like you wouldn't really find on NPCs, or at least not very many. Like sort of like, I think like in 4th edition, like maybe some advantages should be under like advanced advantages or something. Like, I don't know the naming, but just kind of like a way to signify like they're not very common. Like, because at the very end he mentions how he hates multiple schools.
Yeah.
And
he does very much hate that.
Just, I think if like they were categorized like multiple school, maybe Great Destiny, something you're not going to see on like every generic NPC, is just kind of a thing I think, or I just is an idea I like, just sort of to help players out, sort of like understand, give more weight to certain decisions, sort of a thing. There's a system for Pathfinder called the Spheres of Power, that has which replaces magic across the board for Pathfinder, and then later martial abilities in another supplement. But it has advanced tech, like it relegates resurrection and high level magics to advanced techniques, basically. But it also just means like the GM by default can be like, okay, we're playing with the basic ones and not the advanced ones. It just helps, I think, with some management stuff. And
I can see it, yeah. The looking at kind of some of his other talks, moving on, I do think if you are going to go with the idea that you should allow more freeform, then I also think at the very minimum, refocusing the terms of something can be a good idea. So when you look at it, technically, a bushi, by definition, just means warrior, and that was
sure.
I mean, it's just a fighter. But I mean, a magistrate can be a bushi. A scout is going to be likely a bushi.
A courtier can be a bushi.
A courtier can be a bushi.
You can serve as a dignitary in court and be taught how to fight.
Yeah, that part's not like so bad. Like,
Yeah, that part's not really
A
bad.
Shugenja could technically be a bushi in the literal sense.
as long as you like define, as long as that's defined by what you mean when you say bushi.
Yeah, because that's what I mean. It's like if bushi is, if the idea is that anybody can kind of delve into anything else, then the term bushi really more refers to just that somebody who's a warrior, somebody who can fight with whether you define that be with blade or just the fact that they can fight in general, that they are a fighter. Then that means that there really is no such thing as a bushi. There's just somebody who can be a bushi, and this is their job, which is I'm a magistrate, I'm a guard, I am a scout for the army, I'm a shugenja. But we all can fight, therefore we're considered bushi because we're warriors. And I think if you're gonna kind of go into that open focus, then taking those terms away and understanding that there really not should be a classification, let alone a tag, but really kind of a term to help define what you do and like what you are is a little bit probably
Yeah,
more
what you have
important.
access to is at the beginning, essentially.
Yeah,
like,
you
I
could
think-
probably leave it, honestly.
Yeah,
but
like the way the new game uses it, I think is fine.
It's
like
fine,
if you
yeah.
want to change it up, but like if it has the bushi descriptor, it's only going to have these options. Where if it has Shugenja, you get the magic options as
Yeah.
well.
yeah.
I mean, that's the only point of being is that if you're gonna like eliminate, if you're gonna allow the cross balance and allow for the lack of specialization to be as good as specialization based on what he's talking about, then redefine the terms altogether so that there's no idea that like there's no concept of like that somebody who focuses on being X is so much something that's going to be able to taken out by somebody who focuses on X and Y. So it's that. They do some of the stuff he does though in here though I do really like. I do love what he did with the spells. Talking about kind of like breaking them down a little bit and making essentially where there's like the first four
clan-specific
ranks.
ones.
Yeah, the first four ranks are all
Yeah, and
common spells. Like everybody knows them, and this always made more sense to me because this really does irk me. Like, how is it that everybody knows these spells but they're secret? Like this
Yeah.
just doesn't make any sense. And it goes back to my like whole complaint of like why are all these school techniques secret if people see them all the
yeah, and I
damn
believe
time?
his intention would be to do it with the kata and other
Kata
stuff
as well.
well.
Yeah, the same
I
thing
would
there.
argue that maybe it's the same effect they're getting, but the way that they go about with the spell, like to actually cast the spell, might be different. Like their prayers.
I mean, their prayers could be
That's-
different, but if at the end of the day is my prayer is able to call on the kami to heal you, and their prayer calls on the kami to heal them, and they both do the same thing, there's nothing better about it. Then you both have it. You're asking different ways.
Right, but I just mean it as a secret technique, right? Like they may guard theirs because our way is secret, but come to find out it's not.
I
anymore.
think it's
They never
more
say-
the
And
like
just
they
have it
literally
for-
don't have the scrolls, so
Yeah.
therefore no one's ever learned it and they can't. It's not saying people can't like steal it or something. It's probably just like not like mass produced, kind of like they are.
But see, again, that problem comes down to is those that you've got new students every year. Every year. This isn't like this. If we're going to talk about realism, then this means that there have to be enough scrolls for the students that come in and find focus. And if your clan is focused on water-based magic, you have affinity for the water kami, and your children grow up with that affinity because that's how your clan works and that's what you get for your bloodline, then you're going to have spells focused on the area. You need to have spells for every new year that comes in that has affinity, whether that's 3 students or not. You need to have 3 sets of scrolls that they might need to pull from.
You got to
Because
prove
they
that
can't
you're
count.
worthy, then you copy it for them.
You can copy from, but that still creates another version of that scroll. You have to have those scrolls. If 3 students keep passing out of a group of 10 and only 3 pass, you still need 3 copies.
Probably when they
Eventually-
die, I bet they like burn their secret scrolls or something.
They might.
I would
see them-
imagine.
They could do that. I mean, there's tons of justifications, but there's just a point where it's not really feasible and realistic to think that these things aren't going to get out, that people are going to find out. I mean, just freaking modern times, things get out 10 years after the fact. Even back then, it's just impossible to think that these things aren't going to eventually spread out. So I like that the common spells are just like, yeah, the Empire is just kind of very aware that these are, everybody can kind of gain access to these. But then when you get into the clan secret spells, these are spells that seem more specific to a type, to the clan itself. Ones that they have either recently or have kept very under wraps and are given to only very specific individuals who may not even travel outwards. So there's never a chance that they might die and somebody grabs their scroll after they die or something. So on and so forth. That's kind of kept within house, and I like that. I like that these spells.
Yeah, each clan probably has.
I
their
like
own
it as a
cipher
plot
and-
hook. What if someone like say like the Phoenix gift the Crane with one of their secret scrolls. The Phoenix are obviously going to know that, hey, we gave this Crane Shugenja this scroll. What if someone else like ends up using the spell in public and someone testifies and it starts a whole fucking war over like, this guy knows our secret, we never gave it to him. It's like a cool plot hook, I guess. Like, I imagine that the clans would go to war over people just like taking their secret scrolls and like not knowing about it.
They go to war because somebody shit on their front lawn, okay?
Exactly.
Somebody has a sword that belonged to somebody like over 500 years ago, and they're going to go to war with a single sword.
It's not even about the sword. You know what this is? It's not even about the sword at that point. They just want a war. That's what it is.
Oh, yeah.
Like, maybe the protocol is like, if it was gifted to you, maybe you return it to the clan upon your death. Because it was only for you.
But like, let's say we know, yeah. But see, then it goes back into the game of L5R in of itself. Is that like generally death is going to be pretty commonplace, regardless of what rank be. So if you get an awesome scroll and then you die out in the middle of nowhere, it could be possible that the rescue team picks it up, finds the scroll. Maybe they don't know that that scroll belonged to another clan, and then they return it back to their own clan, thinking, "Oh well, it probably belonged to us." Somebody misses up because people make mistakes.
Hopefully the honorable Shugenja would return it to the other clan.
Hopefully he would, but he may not know, or he may copy it, or some evil force takes it.
And then you got a war on your hand.
Possibly, and that's only though if they ever find out that they.
It's cool. I think it's interesting. It like opens up a lot of RP stuff, like by actually like having a set list of stuff.
Yeah,
like plot hooks abound.
At the same time though, it also gives you kind of an idea is that like, okay, the common spells, like these are ones that pretty much every clan is able to come up with their own, or they've shared, and it's been shared enough through one way or another that eventually it got out. It didn't start a war because they realized that it's not really worth starting a war over for that thing. Or they couldn't, and it just eventually kind of, died out. The flames just
maybe the commie just went, we're telling everybody how to do it, and they went, oh, I guess they did.
Again,
nothing we can do.
Reason, but more importantly, those common spells give a reason as to why now these spells are so easily shared. And the secret clan spells are the ones that allow an argument for like, this is actually a very secret spell. It's fallen into enemy hands. We would like you to go get it. That makes more sense because you're like, well, what spell is it? It's one that's very secret. It's actually not one known by the Empire. And when you say it like that, it's like, oh, that's a very special spell.
The Phoenix get a lot of them, as they should.
There you go. As they should, yeah, absolutely. The Phoenix rightfully do deserve.
It's just cool to see a list of them because I've never actually seen one. It's been in every single edition of the game, and no one's ever listed them out. Here we go. Now
are you a bad enough dude to save the spell scroll?
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean that's one of the other thing. The other one that I did like actually kind of was at the end. There's the newest one where he released out why to change.
Yeah, this just flat out makes sense.
Yeah,
it does make sense to an extent. I'm going to argue right here that ultimately, if one family is really really successful, but the rest of the families are not, that should probably be reflective of the fact that you're using one family to attempt to stay aloft for every other family. And the biggest case for this one would be like the crab. The Yusuke, for instance, started with 10 koku. Everybody else starts out with 2 or 3, except for the Kaiju, who get 5. And I get it. The Yusuke are merchants. They are ruthless merchants. They will make money hand over fist. That is their business, and you are in it. But at the same time, a lot of that money is going to be dispensed through the crane. Not the crane. Good God. Through the crab clan. It's that Freudian slip.
Yeah.
Tying it just to the clan may have been enough.
I think so, but I do like the fact that the family is a reflection of it. You could have added here's what the clan normally gets based on the general wealth of the clan, and then you could have added +2 or -1 depending on the family that you.
I think he's implying it comes directly from your lord's taxes rather than the champions, I guess.
Yeah.
So basically his flavor version of it would be that the lord divvies up his stoppings amongst his yearly taxes that he gets in before sending them off to the clan champion.
Yeah,
that's at least how I interpret it. I'm sure it's what he implied.
It's actually probably a better way for that in my eyes, though. For two reasons. One, I like the idea is that because first off, then that means that it is putting a little more emphasis on what samurai kind of were in real life, which was people who wanted land and had the means to potentially take it with maybe some ability thrown in the background to argue for the family history. Secondly, I like the emphasis on families over clans because it makes more sense. While a clan
It
might
also just never made sense to do it to school.
Yeah, school makes
just
zero
doesn't make
sense.
It really does. That's flat out.
Oh, you've completed your Gimbaku. Here's 10 Koku. Come back next year.
Why Kikita Sensei? Why do I get more money than him, even though we come from the same clan and we're both equally kind of rich? That's because he took the Daidoji, and they're much more poor than us.
Yeah.
Specifically because they're Daidoji, and they just don't get paid as well. Should have been a duelist.
They should really.
The Asahina only get 4 because they're so aesthetic.
Yeah,
makes sense, dude. It's cool.
It does make sense. It does make sense for that.
Togashi, no stipend.
They're completely aesthetic, yeah.
Yeah, but that makes sense for what they are as to why the family wouldn't even get any in the first place. I think but ultimately, like I said, I think it would be just really cool is if like it would I like this just for the fact that it does give more emphasis to the families, because the families ultimately in my eyes are far more important than the actual clans. Hearsay to some, but I say not so much. The families are very distinct from one another. That's kind of what gives the flavor for the whole world. If I'm from the Lion Clan, that means like, okay, so you might be a very fighty dude. But then you get deeper into it, it's like, well, no, Akoma can fight, but the Akoma are more bardish in nature. They were good talkers. They were willing to get down and dirty.
They would just want to yell at things.
Exactly. But then you might talk
Whereas Matsu want to yell at things and then punch them.
Punch them. Yeah. Yep. Maybe punch them, then yell at them, depending on the Matsu.
Mm.
Probably that order, actually. But when you start pulling, like, actually looking at the families, they're very different from one another. They're not all the same. The Hida are absolutely not the Haruma.
Yeah.
And I mean, one of the biggest distinctions from a clan, in my eyes, is, ironically enough, Asahina, Doji, and Kikita, very different from Daidoji. Absolutely different.
When I say my favorite clans are like Crab, Crane, and Unicorn, what I mean is I like Haruma, Kikita, and Shinjo.
Yeah, exactly. But that's true. Like, you might like that clan.
No, that is that is 100% what I mean.
Yeah, but that's what I like. Is I like that emphasis on the families, because the families.
Though Crab probably is less. I mean, I like most of the families of the Crab, but anyway.
The families themselves are like. To my point being is that the families themselves are far more standing out than the clan itself. The clan itself has a very stereotype to them, yes, but generally that's based on likely what is the most prolific family of that clan, and less so the actual other
then
clans.
Again, that's also more about the school of that family.
Yeah.
Less, which I mean, I guess. I mean, do you go to your family's school most of the time?
I don't know. I mean,
like, just because you're a Haruma,
yeah,
if you trained as a Hida, you trained as a Hida, then you're gonna probably follow the Hida stereotypes more. Right?
I would say you're right, but then you've got Doji, who are the head of the Crane. They're the Doji champ is the Doji or the champion, and yet they almost exclusively take up the Kikita duelist and not the Doji family courtier school. So
right,
got that.
But I'm just saying they're probably going to, after training with all the others, like they're probably going to lean more towards that stereotype than the
some
other.
do.
Yeah,
the old celestial sword, or not celestial, but the what they call it. I'm failing on my L5R lore, but like the old champion sword. If you were rank 5 Kikita duelist, it gave you all the techniques for rank 5 Kikita courtier, and vice versa. Basically, was the way the sword worked.
Jesus, that's incredibly strong. But I'm looking at it though, like I know from in the world's perspective, generally when they started up their teachings at whatever school that they're going to, which I have problems with the schools themselves, because there's just like one school, one spot that teaches only Kikita duelists, and everybody exports their child over there, and the child goes there for like whatever, and I guess they come back for summer break or something. I don't know. Or maybe the family was over there.
I thought there would be teachers throughout the lands or whatever.
That's how I've always seen
Yeah,
it. As teachers
and
throughout
that's what he implies here too. Is
Yeah,
that you
he-
kind of
I
like
could've
look
sworn
seek out.
Seen that.
that's how he sees it, and that's how I see it. But when you present it to somebody new,
Yeah.
that's not really how it's presented.
Yeah,
There's
it's
like
the Kakita
specifically
Dueling
the
Academy.
Kakita Academy.
Yeah, I'm pretty
the
sure,
Hina
like,
school.
I'm pretty sure it mentions like the Kakita Dueling Academy is like the best place, but I'm pretty sure there are other teachers elsewhere.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and in his version, I'm sure you can learn a lot more like kata and obviously the artisan stuff and probably some
Yeah.
courtly stuff there. But
exactly.
so it's like a better school to go to because you get a more well-rounded education.
Yeah,
Uh,
or
that's
you might
what-
be able
that's
to,
like
you know,
one of the
top
really cool
minds of that
things.
area.
Like I hope he does just keeps releasing stuff and like adding to the homebrew and eventually like just I want to start mapping out like where certain sensei would eat and like stuff like that.
I also,
'Cause
you know what I also,
I want more homebrew because I actually wouldn't mind playtesting this in like a short campaign.
Mhm.
I would like to more homebrew as well because I think 4th edition is a wonderful edition. I mean, I've said this before 1,000 times. I think it's a wonderful edition. I just think that there's a lot of things that could be rectified, modified, or
Oh, something else we forgot, Meta.
What?
Spellcasting is now based off your, or he likes it
Oh,
based off your spellcraft
yes!
because Prodigy
Yes!
Shugenja are a thing. Prodigy
Yes!
Shugenja shouldn't get screwed, and there can
Yes,
be
yes,
really good
yes.
Shugenja at like rank 1 who are better than like a guy at rank 2 as far as like his raw skill at spellcasting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It makes the skill actually do something.
The spellcraft has always been there as this idea like to discern what a spell is and possibly to make spells, but that's generally just doesn't come up. And I've seen this a lot of times, or a lot of times when the games are played for L5R. A lot of times when somebody says, like, can I research a spell? And it's just like, as a GM, you're just kind of like, I don't know if I really want to do that. That's a lot of work and we have to figure it out. And there's no general rule of thumb for spells. And I think some of the books eventually came out with like ways to create your own, but I've never seen most GMs come up with any response other than maybe. It seems to be a stuck thing. I like that spellcraft is finally now attached to like this is how you get better at casting spells. You are a better spellcaster. Because here's the thing. For Shugenja, if it was when it's based on their insight rank, all Shugenja then want to do is two things. One, raise up the ring as much as possible. And then two, get as much insight bonuses as you can as fast as you can.
Give me that etiquette in Courtier 3 ASAP.
Exactly. Just rush for it. Rush for it. Because that's going to get you better spell casting faster. And it's going to get you new spells faster. So there's no
his
reason...
system I don't think would stop that. They would just
It
spend
would-
all their XP on spells and spellcraft.
I mean, that's not really gonna. I mean, it's not gonna stop anybody trying to rush to the top. But I just don't like the fact that it's so nicely packed into one package. It's like the idea of MAD, like the multiple attribute disorder that you
Mhm.
see like with classes. I like it when you're forced to kind of spread things out because I've played Kakita Bushi long enough to say that that's one of the hardest things to deal with is when you suddenly have to decide. Do I want to raise up my void to become a better duelist, or do I need the agility to hit people when I'm not doing?
yeah.
Do I need
awareness?
Duelists
So
are like the
do I need
most
awareness so
mad,
he doesn't get the
Yeah,
back
I-
jump on me?
Exactly. Do I need to finally raise up my Earth Ring because even if I can hit him in the duel, if I can't guarantee that hit, if I can't get that kill, or if he hits me back, then I'm screwed. Those when you're in that kind of situation where you need to finally think, you start really diversifying yourself.
Yeah, I do
Like,
too, but I don't think his system allows that for Shugenja, is what I'm saying.
oh, you don't. So you just don't think that the fact that they now have
I-
to put points into spellcaster while trying to raise up the other two things would be any harder?
Well,
Seriously.
his system would just be you can buy it as soon as you have the XP for it, as long, or well, I guess.
You
I mean,
could-
it depends on how you balance the.
Yeah, you could put the
Like he doesn't. He mentions on the kata at least like having requirements.
Yeah,
like,
that's what I was gonna
ring
say.
requirements, but he didn't do that for spells. So
I was gonna say, I
just
mean,
don't
I'm
know
just
how
specifically
he-
spells.
like because as he was talking, or he just made it sound like as soon as you have the XP, you can kind of buy the
like some you might have to have like a certain calligraphy rank in because you can't
Right.
literally decipher the cipher it's written in. Could
Yeah,
be
I guess
like a thing.
I would need to see more, right? Like I'm all for having that,
Yes.
option, but
Yeah.
as it stands right now, it's like raise spellcraft by spells is like the decisions to be a better spellcaster.
I
And-
mean, we can only go off of what is here. So
yeah. So I would need.
I mean,
to see.
if anything that's not
Yeah.
well defined, unfortunately. But I do, again, the core concept that I'm pulling from is that the idea is that it's not linked to insight rank means that now you have to kind of spend points in spellcraft as well as trying to raise up your insight and as well as focusing on your ring instead of just.
Well, his would be getting rid of it. He prefers getting rid of insight entirely, which I'm not sure
really
on.
for that. I'm not really sure on that one either.
I think having like some sort of level is just kind of is good for balance.
It's also good for a player in general. Having an idea or a sense of level progression is a good thing.
I think maybe just tying it to XP, like the whole converting to insight rank is kind of iffy. Like, I wouldn't necessarily say keep that, but some sort of level system I think should be there.
I think it might be just due to the way that how XP is spent and whatnot in this game, though. Because I mean, like raising up from 6 to 7 is just going to raise up your insight rank by 1 point, or not your insight rank, your insight by.
You could probably just call Insight XP or something like that, and like you said, you've gotten 30 XP, now you're rank 2 or something,
right?
And
something like
then
that.
Now you can buy like the rank, like common rank 2 kata and techniques, and maybe like the rank. You could do like the spell where you have an affinity kind of with Shugenja. Maybe you can access like the rank 3 techniques in your school for XP now or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I could see that. I don't know. I think that would really need more like actual talking out.
Yeah, he's more just spitting. He's not going, I'm completely homebrewing the system.
He's not actually
just
throwing
spitting
out
out
mechanics.
ideas.
He's just spitting out ideas. Yeah, exactly. He's putting out ideas.
Yeah.
He's placing them out here and just going off of like.
And I mean, there's definitely a lot here that I like, and I wouldn't mind,
I actually
trying to refine it more.
I actually kind of like the more idea of pulling away from school techniques in general and putting more emphasis onto the kata, but putting benefits towards getting certain kata based on the school's focus. That to me, in my eyes, I don't even know if that's really what he's saying on here, to be true, because he's got a very, very specific view on what he wants to do with like kata and rings and traits and so on and so forth. But to me personally, from this information, I think personally a better idea would be to go a bit of 50-50 from what FFG is doing. Always more options. That's just me though. That's my love of options.
Me too.
But I would say I would like the idea where the school techniques aren't as big of a focus. The school techniques really should fall into what the school are, and I think FFG did that well, where when you pick up that school technique on your first rank, it really does feel like that's kind of what your school is. But I really wish a little bit more of the focus for certain schools and whatnot was kind of based on the kata. I mean, you really see that in the Book of the Fire Ring for 4th edition, where they suddenly release out the Miramoto and the Kakita katas. And those stand out very potently for Miramoto / Kakita. And I wish barring the fact I wish other clans and schools kind of got that love, so to speak, because they really didn't. That kind of stuff I would like to see a little bit more on, where you have kind of a group, almost like I might call it a talent tree of sorts, where you kind of start from this base point and then you can kind of build downwards, where it's got a lot of horizontal progression, but things get progressively better as you go farther and farther down that tree, or as you get stronger and stronger. So you have options and choices that kind of fit into the realm of what the school might specialize around, but with broad parts to it. So that you can keep the flavor of what that school is, being a Kakita duelist, being a very sturdy Hida Bushi, being a very precise striking Akodo, that kind of thing. So that's what I would like to see. And in regards to some of his stuff, he like I said, he does agree with a little bit of the FFG in regards to that area. So
I kind of like the idea of how FFG is like, once you spend enough on these things, you've kind of gone up a school rank, sort of a thing.
Yeah.
Like, so that.
Yeah.
Like, you're not every Hida is going to be, every rank 2 Hida is going to have the same stuff, but
exactly
it's similar stuff. Like, it's like similar, kind of a focus. Yeah, and like you can buy stuff outside of that, but that's you like spending time outside of your school focus, right?
Yeah.
So you have more tricks, but you're not any better at doing your school stuff because you you
went out and
slacked
did-
off and did other stuff or something.
Yeah, or you decided to veer outside of what the school really
Right.
talks about, which is fine. I think that's an absolute thing to do. But I like that idea of options while staying to kind of a quasi theme, a soft theme, so to
Yeah.
speak, not a
Mhm.
hard theme, but a soft theme for what the school could be, and it's
Just
fine.
a
if certain-
big pool is a big pool for each kind of rank, quote unquote rank,
Yes.
is kind of nice. Like it
Yes.
just having more options as you go.
Yeah, as I said, yeah,
As
the
is
options.
always that pops up
And
a
it's-
lot when I'm talking. But
And I know some people might say this, like, like some people are very afraid of always having I can't remember what the term is called, but it's monotonism or something like that, where
it's
every
D&D 4th edition.
where essentially everybody does the same thing, but
Yeah.
it's just flavored differently. We don't
Mhm.
want that either, obviously, but
Right.
it's okay if certain schools, like let's say the Daidoji and the Hida, might have some techniques that are kind of similar to one another mechanically.
Yeah.
That's fine. You can have some overlapping from schools. That just gives it more variety, and it's kind of like, well, they're not the only ones who can do it.
Yeah.
So it's not fully
Right.
secret, but they might
That
just
comes
do it
back to
differently.
like the differentiating between common and
common
secret
and
style
spec.
or
Mhm.
whatever.
But it does mean that the secret stuff then finally can stand out, because
Mhm.
if everybody can do it, then there's no secrets, and if it's always just secret stuff, then you have too hard of a focus on
Yeah,
something.
and that
And that goes
that's
back
the
to what
whole
I said
thing.
earlier.
Different
Yeah, and
school.
that's what I said back to you. That's a very tight rope type walk that you have to get to.
That should be very, very rare, and it never is.
Yeah.
It seems like there's always someone in one game I play that wants to be different in school. Something.
Right. Which I don't know. I don't
That's
really mind it because players are kind of meant to be special, right? Like
Yeah. You
But-
are. You're
No,
playing
Mal, you're not
characters.
special in my game. You're just somebody else.
right. But again, that's why I was like saying I like differentiating between like sort of an advanced level of like
Yeah,
those kind of
exactly.
like feats or whatever you want to call them, like advantages and stuff. Like this is meant like something that shows off it is really special.
You
and
need to be
you just
like
easily go like we're not playing
Blissfully
with any of these.
betrothed, maybe
Right.
a hostage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, great. Like you don't not everyone needs great destiny.
Exactly.
Like stuff like that. But like everyone having some I don't know blanking on anything, but like all your bushis being
Even Momoku. How many Momoku? Not that everyone's going to take that disad, but still.
right.
All these people who are cut off from the void.
Yeah, they are.
So
So sad.
I don't. Yeah, I want to.
wanna
Hopefully,
see
puts
more.
out more stuff.
Yeah.
If he puts out like maybe like 2 more posts, I'd probably be willing to like fill in some of the blanks, and like we could fill in together, I guess. And I'd be happy to run like a 5 to 6 session like mini game to play test it.
I would love a chance to also just talk with him on a general basis, just to discuss these things. Whether you agree or not isn't really the point, but just to understand the more where he's coming from and ideas that they have. But I mean, the posts are fine as long as they keep coming. But yeah, I would love an opportunity to just kind of run through this, because I mean, if there's one thing I love to do, it's to take up an idea, look at it, and then say how crappy it is, and never ever give any constructive criticism about it, because that's just how I roll. No, I love taking ideas that people have and trying them out and testing them and seeing it. Would this be better?
Yeah.
Is it better? I want.
It's like a
fourth edition.
4.5.
Yeah, I mean, I literally buffed up the moto class. I love homebrewing and crafting things. If there's something that can make 4th edition better, because let's be honest, 4th edition is far away from perfect.
Still the best edition, in my opinion.
I think it's probably the best edition in my eyes. I haven't even played the other ones, but just looking back at the
We need to
mechanics
go.
from them,
We need to actually replay the old ones so you can see
Don't.
how bad some of them are.
I don't
Oriental
wanna go through that
Adventures.
The 3rd edition, where
I've
you're just
already-
like all
I've
this
played
math.
Oriental.
Like
have
full blown Oriental?
Not full blown Oriental.
No.
Not full blown. I've only played like the base one.
Yeah.
I'd want to do like high level character Oriental Adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Oh god, that's
Or at least like mid or whatever. Like
Yeah, like level 10.
closer to 10. Yeah.
getting into dangerous high level territory.
Let's go kill Fu Ling.
I'm gonna
might need to be
suplex
higher
him.
than level.
I don't
10.
even want to design. I don't even want to come up
No.
with Fu Ling in that.
No more
That's
fooling.
that's
I'm
gonna be a.
tired of that, dude.
I know
I'm
you are,
tired.
buddy.
All right, this is probably
This is
a
good.
good place to wrap up.
Let's
All right,
drop
yeah.
off this
It's
topic.
only 2 topics today. They were both long. That's what you get. and also because I don't have one, and Tets has a kid. So there you go.
Don't tell them that. Movie magic. Just wave down your fingers.
I'm being transparent. I'm shattering the veil. You're seeing it all, people.
No, Obs.
You're getting me wrong.
You're disturbing the balance of the Force. You were supposed to bring
that
balance.
Obs has one is just a secret only for those in the Podcast of Five Ring School. So
that's right. They're actually secret. They're secret. It's a secret clan topic.
We're the Deer Clan. Did you see they announced the Deer Clan?
Yep.
Wait, seriously?
They're like
they're like
opposite Atomo.
Yeah, they're like ninja magic Atomo almost.
They're kind of meant to.
They learn your destiny and then interfere with it.
Yeah. Or maybe I thought they're like kind of meant to regulate the clans, but maybe less antagonistically than the Atomo.
It's more, kind of. I think that's what I got.
I never understood. That's a different topic for another day.
Anyway, can we rant on the Atomo another day?
Oh God,
the Atomo and the Bayushi school.
The Atomo, Bayushi, and anybody clan who's got some greater purpose for the Empire. Just fuck off.
But Meta, don't you like Keikaku?
It's so stupid. End this. Just pull it out.
This has been the Podcast of Five Rings.
Say it, Mal. It's the year Mal.
I don't know it.
You don't know it.
Quick,
hold on.
It's the year of the mouth. We have to end it on his note.
There you go. And
they're skipping the rest.
That's the intro.
Yeah, no, you changed it. Yeah.
Hello, everyone.
Cut out the italicized part.
Been episode 77 of Podcast of Five Rings, your source of enlightenment in the realm of video games, tabletop, anime, film, and tech. Each episode of Podcast of Five Rings releases Monday mornings on iTunes and SoundCloud, and topic by topic, day by day on YouTube, with the full video releasing on Friday. To catch updates...
What was that?
Okay. You can catch updates on your social media of choice. We've got a Twitter. We've got a podcast. Meta streams over on his own Twitch channel. He's been playing a lot of DMC, and I'm sure there's more to follow.
Oh yeah, and RE2.
And RE2. It's been great, real fun.
Why do we have Sanskrit characters in our Facebook thing? In Discord, why are they there?
You wrote this?
I don't know what's there.
Pull the plug. We're bye. Have a good day. Bye.
I'm crying.